From Matthew's Gospel. Now while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum, and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver, and from that moment he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. Jesus looked tired. It didn't take that long to walk back from the temple, past Gethsemane, up the steep path to the top of the Mount of Olives and across to Bethany. Jesus was used to walking. What made Jesus tired was the arguments. He cared about people, and he believed that God loved them, whatever judgment anyone else made. That annoyed some people who thought of themselves as better than others. Those who worked hard for their success didn't want to hear that God loves everyone just the same. Surely if they'd made money, or reached a high standard of education, or developed a special talent, or just have a happy marriage and family, then God should love them just a little bit more. The people who believed that most stubbornly were often the most devout. It made no sense to them to suggest that obedience to God in every aspect of their lives, morally, spiritually, financially, didn't give them VIP status with the Almighty. The worst were the chief priests, who felt that because they were at the top of the hierarchy, they were closer to God than anyone. When Jesus went to the temple, he urged people to love God and each other. He encouraged people to live their best life in accordance with God's way. He was seen by the religious establishment as intruding on their territory. They did everything they could to undermine him and to challenge his right to speak. Jesus found it exhausting. The walk back to Bethany each night helped him to relax. The hospitality he received restored his spirits. It was good to rest so that he could face another day in Jerusalem tomorrow. He was sitting after dinner in Simon's house when the woman came in. She looked at him with determination and with eyes full of gratitude and devotion. She held an open jar. From it came the earthy, spicy smell of spikenard. Smells are evocative. It triggered a memory in Jesus of Joseph, washed, wrapped, made ready for burial. He remembered also another woman who had wept over his feet and whom he had assured of God's love and forgiveness, much to the annoyance of his Pharisee host. He smiled at the thought, and then he felt cool wetness on the top of his head. There was liquid trickling over his ears, down his neck, and off his bearded chin. The smell reminded him of wet leaves on a forest floor. For a moment he felt as if the floor was opening beneath him and he was slipping down into the dark earth. Then someone broke the spell. "Why this waste?" someone shouted. It sounded like Judas. Money was never far from his thoughts. The extravagance of this gesture would have upset him. Jesus spoke to defend the woman and to show his gratitude for the honour she had paid him. The woman returned the warm smile he gave her when, finally, she found the courage to look at him. Then behind her, he caught sight of Judas, with a face like thunder. Jesus knew it would not be much longer.